I'm Scarlett Fu, and this is Bloomberg Quicktake. Recovery efforts are underway in the Pacific island nation of Tonga following a violent volcanic eruption that triggered a tsunami. At least 3 people are confirmed dead. Dozens of properties were damaged or destroyed, and communication lines have been severed. Tonga now faces a dire food and water shortage, with supplies contaminated by salt water and ash. So joining us now to talk about the challenges of providing relief and delivering aid is Vivienne Euini. She is Director of International at New Zealand Red Cross. Vivienne, thank you so much for joining us right now. To be clear, New Zealand Red Cross is not in Tonga at the moment, but you are in touch with the Tongan Red Cross and are waiting for guidance on how to proceed. What have you heard from them so far?
Well, tēnā koe, Scarlett. So far we're working in coordination with other movement partners. So the International Federation in Suva has been in direct contact. As of yesterday, the communication lines have been a lot clearer, and we've managed to have 2 solid calls in the morning and later in the afternoon with the Tongan Red Cross. So, I mean, that's a huge bonus, because communication has been one of the biggest challenges, and we rely on that to get an understanding of what exactly they're facing, but also for us to be able to feed in communication the other way to let the Tongan Red Cross know, what type of response support they'll receive from others in the movement.
All right, so number 1 is to assess the damage and understand what's needed now that communication is up in a way. I have heard that you have a specialist emergency response units that have technical expertise and can really go into a place and start working with information technology, telecom, water, shelter, specific areas of infrastructure that require aid. How do you envision that working once you get word of the kind of needs that Tonga has at the moment?
Sure. So I guess just to clarify, the emergency response unit that we have deals specifically in IT and telecommunications. So the role that they can play when communications go down is to take the gear that's required to build temporary infrastructure to be able to open up the communication. Now, we have a team, we're one of 4 within the globe, but unfortunately, we're restricted by the Tongan government's border closure, and rightfully so. They're currently COVID-free, and certainly we certainly don't want to be taking COVID into the country. So at the moment, they've requested that any form of support is made via a contactless method. So at this point in time, whilst we would love to be able to deploy our people in country, we just simply can't. Now that may change, but just at the moment, we're not able to.
So what would that support and aid look like if it's going to be contactless? Will they just be airdropped food and supplies delivered to port without people and the use of robots? How do you see that working out?
Exactly. Well, airdrops is a possibility. We know that our New Zealand government have sent in 2 ships that are carrying much needed supplies, including water, in a diving teams. But again, it's contactless. So any goods that are to be delivered will just have to be dropped off at the port and then left. So yeah, it's going to be a little tricky. As far as our perhaps personnel that would deploy, until we can get in country, it would look like remote support, which isn't ideal, but it does still help us to be able to provide some sort of support, certainly in perhaps logistics and roles like planning, monitoring, evaluation and reporting, which of course is very much needed to certainly satisfy donors and be able to share the data around what support is being provided. But it's not ideal. We'd rather be be in country if possible.
Yeah, of course, you'd rather be on the ground, and it's something that hopefully can happen at some point soon. But in the meantime, there is a lot of effort underway in delivering financial aid at the very least. Vivienne Euini, Director of International at New Zealand Red Cross. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Now, among those who are helping to raise money for disaster relief is Pita Taufatofua. He gained fame for marching shirtless as Tonga's Olympic flag bearer. He's helped raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for his home nation through a GoFundMe page. And Pita joins us now from Brisbane, Australia. Pita, welcome to Quicktake. I know that you're in Brisbane because that's where you do your training, but tell me a little bit about how your family and friends are doing in Tonga. And of course, when I say Tonga, Tonga is huge in that it's made up of 170 islands, 36 of which are inhabited. Tell us a little bit about how your friends and family are doing.
So the latest update from my family is that our family on Ha'apai is safe. The message was that waves had gone right through the home, but the foundation was strong enough to hold the home together. But the neighbors weren't so lucky, and other people on the island weren't so lucky. But more importantly, there wasn't there was no loss of life from my family. I still haven't heard from my father, but he was on a different island. He was on Tonga Tapu. And at this point, I haven't heard from him. I believe that there is some level of basic communication back and forth with Tonga, depending on what who has what cell company.
Okay, so this is something that you're certainly waiting on at the moment. Can you tell me a little bit more about how easily your family on the island that you were able to communicate with are able to get around if they needed to, or are they kind of limited by where they can move to?
The communication that I got from them was nothing more than a sentence and a picture, picture or two. And we at that point we couldn't communicate backwards to them, if that makes sense. They just managed to get that out. But I haven't actually spoken to them. The images coming out of Ha'apai are absolutely devastating. The amount of ash that's landed on the country, and to think that one of our greatest exports is agriculture, and that this could be an absolute disaster with the annihilation of the agricultural crop.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk to, I mean, as an athlete who represents Tonga, I'm guessing that you do have access to people in Tonga who are able to share with you just overall conditions on the island nation. What are they able to communicate to you about how things are? Like what has been able to been restored? The very minimum of communications at the moment, but in terms of operations.
I had heard that electricity was back up in most certainly Nuku'alofa, but I had a message from my coach, who managed to get in touch with his sister, who said his mother was safe, and they had said that there's just ash everywhere. The whole country is covered in ash, plants, houses, roads, just basically everything. So other than that, they said they've started somewhat of the cleanup process, but how do you clean up a whole country covered in a thick layer of ash?
Yeah, absolutely. How would people feel about aid workers coming in from New Zealand or from Australia? Because as Vivienne was just telling us, Tonga is COVID-free right now, and the possibility of having people come in means that they might bring in the virus with them.
Those sorts of decisions, I completely leave to the government to make those decisions. I don't want to step in. I myself haven't been able to step into Tonga for 2 years because of the COVID lockdowns. I mean, I would love to be able to get back there and to have my bare feet on the ground, but I have to leave that to the government to decide how that's going to look, and how the aid is going to be taken off ships or planes, or I'm sure they've got a process ready to do that, and we've got many smart people in Tonga as well who are capable of doing many great things. So I leave that to the government.
So in the meantime, the money that you did raise, how will you be deploying it if it could be days, if not weeks, before any of the materials could be airdropped?
We're looking at we're looking at, I guess, firstly the immediate need, but also the medium to long term need as well. This isn't a sprint for us. This is a middle distance or long distance run. And so we're going to do a needs assessment as soon as that communication opens up a little bit better, putting a team who is already on the ground in Tonga to then tell us what the needs are and then how best to meet those needs. They will be running this based on what they consider the need, not based on what I consider the need.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. What is the message that you want to get out to your family and friends in Tonga right now?
I just wanted to tell everyone over in Tonga is that we've been working very hard. We know you've all gone through very tough times. To be hit by a volcano and then a tsunami. All the Tongans overseas and many others overseas have started to come together to understand that there's been a catastrophe, and we've all been standing with you. We've all been here preparing, raising funds, raising awareness to help you, so you weren't alone.
And what is the message you wanted to let people who are volunteering their time and money and want to help in this moment?
So we've created a GoFundMe fundraiser, Tonga Tsunami by Pita Taufatofua. And if anyone who's able to donate to help, if you can't donate and help, if you can share, if you can't share, if you could just spread awareness, send messages of support to all the Tongans around the world. They're all going through difficult times at the moment, not knowing about their family. But yes, most certainly getting awareness out is very important along with the fundraising.
Well, we appreciate everything you've done and the message that you are sending out to everyone. Pita, thank you so much. Pita Taufatofua joining us from Brisbane, Australia.